meetings to discuss the multimodal district and master transportation planning. We expect and are going to go ahead and begin since we did set the beginning hour for 9 a.m. this morning, but the mayor should be joining us. But we're going to go ahead and move forward with this morning's presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to the city manager. Madam City Manager.
Good morning, everyone. Again, I think the Mayor Pro Tem has mentioned that this is the first of 2 public hearings on Tennessee Street. The second one is scheduled currently for March 28th as a part of our regular City Commission meeting on that date. This morning, we would like to make a very brief presentation on the Tennessee Street corridor to be followed by a public hearing to receive comments and any concerns that any of our public have on that topic. I'd like to welcome, who's going to do this, Cherie? Good morning.
Good morning, commissioners and members of the public. I will be very quick just to frame the discussion, and because of course the main goal of today is to have a chance for the public to speak before you. The Moving Tallahassee Cars optional plan is for the entire mobility district, the 18 square mile area around downtown, encompassing the universities as well as Midtown and Frenchtown neighborhoods. Today, the presentation will focus on the multimodal district the way it is now, and tomorrow, the challenges, the master transportation plan approach to deal with some of the financial challenges, the Tennessee Street conversion, and then the potential next steps. I know that you commissioners, as commissioners have seen this, this is for the public. The multimodal district is functioning with relatively minor traffic deficiencies now. However, by 2035, we are expecting many of the roads, as you can see, turn to red, which means they start failing, which means you have multiple waits at lights. So the goal is to try to figure out how to deal with that over the next 20 years. The problem is that the costs for new road construction are so expensive now, we can't really build our way out of congestion. For example, the Capitol Circle, currently under design, is projected to cost about $107 million. We're projecting that Tennessee Street would cost at least $100 million to widen. And as a comparison, we're only projecting to get about $75 million in revenue from the state and federal government over the next 20 years. The master plan approach, since we have these financial difficulties or challenges, is to use a twofold approach to still deal with the mobility challenges for the population that's growing in this area. First is to focus on complete streets that support all modes, and the second is to pursue and fund alternative modes of transportation. Just as a, that involves infrastructure planning, corridor planning. For example, here, the minor grid connections, filling in sidewalk links, operational changes, right-of-way changes to make the streets more walkable so that people can access the stores and the transit stops, as well as a bicycle route network. The bicycle route network for the whole area does include Call Street as well. It's always included Call Street as a proposed bicycle route, so I'll touch on that in a moment. And then a wayfinding system. The alternatives, and the second piece, of course, is alternative modes of transportation. The Star Metro Alternatives Analysis, so there's been reference to that throughout this project, which is evaluating long-term fixed route system. We need to look at parking policy recommendations as well, and the transit pilot is a shorter-term goal. The alternatives analysis is estimated to be completed in 2013, and it's a first step to apply for Federal Transit Administration grant for a larger project, such as streetcar. Also looking at alternatives for the transit system is to work with the universities to minimize the use of cars on campus and explore other parking strategies. This Tennessee Street, of course, came up after a series of accidents. In 2008, the Student Government Association approached the city to deal with those, the accidents that had occurred in 2008. As you can see, most of the accidents don't really occur late at night. They occur throughout the corridor, throughout the day. So as a result of those conversations, which occurred over the course of a year with with the Florida State University, this, some short-term, intermediate, and long-term proposals took place. Short-term to deal with, to start looking at mid-block crossings and that to allow the crossings more safely. Longer term was to promote the transit, easier transit access, and to work at providing a buffer between the pedestrian and the sidewalk and somehow slow the traffic overall. The pilot area would convert the outside lanes to between Ocala and Monroe, which is the only 6-lane section, to the area, to an area which would allow buses and bikes and would allow the right turning movement into and out of businesses. The reason for the time frame to do it now is, of course, because of the 2014 repaving schedule for Florida Department of Transportation. The safety aspects you can see from this picture up here, the car moving on the top would be about moving 30 to 45 miles an hour. By doing the striped buffer, you would reserve that outside lane and provide a separation because cars would only be going about 15 miles an hour because they should only be making right turns. They wouldn't be using it as a through lane. That reduction in speed makes a huge difference as far as anyone who's hit by a car. If the pilot were to be put, earlier to provide that buffer during late night hours, we worked with FDOT to consider using the outside lanes for late night parking. They did not accept that proposal, and thus we moved to the pilot system. Traffic circulation models right now are showing minimal impacts to the surrounding area. There's some examples from other cities where similar concepts have worked and have succeeded for numerous years. I won't read those to you for the sake of time, but there are several communities that we've spoken with who've had successes. Given that the master plan is still under development, the overall master plan to do the long-range planning for the entire multimodal district, we'll be continuing to do that. The main elements coming later this year. City staffs, if you so choose, it is possible to do a separate, do a temporary striping of the pilot separate from DOT's schedule, dependent on DOT programs. The alternatives analysis, which would be complete by 2013, could provide some additional guidance as to how that is put into, how that would be or could be implemented. In the interim, the Commission would, per your guidance, we could work with DOT to try to install mid-block crossings. DOT's had an initial study that stated that they didn't see that they were warranted, but I believe that's being reevaluated is what I'm told. So we could continue to work with them. We will regardless continue to work with Call Street as being a bike route system and look at other considered looking at the on-street parking late at night again. And with that, I'll step out of the way and to the public.
That concludes the staff's presentation. It does. I think the next thing is public comment. Do we have individuals signed up?
We do. We have a number of speakers.
I thought so.
We'll call the first one will be Curtis Baines. As he approaches, I'll remind speakers or ask speakers to give us your name and address for the record. There will be a light that's green when you begin speaking. It'll turn yellow, and then with 30 seconds remaining, then turn red when your time's expired.
Mr. Baines knows the rules.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Curtis Baines, 1323 East Tennessee Street. I've got some reservations about the closing off in East Tennessee Street. When I first heard about the multimodal plan, I guess about a year ago, I attended something over at the Renaissance Center, I think it was, and you know, I heard about the lane striping and the pilot project, and I thought at the time, well, that makes sense. I mean, I understand constrained corridors. We're not going to be able to widen and build wider roads and that sort of thing, so we're going to have to do something about that. But over the course of the past year, you know, I've been hearing more and more about the pedestrian issue involved here. And what I'm not real clear on, while I understand we need to think in terms of future transportation needs, I'm not real sure how the pilot project on East Tennessee Street is going to deal with the pedestrian issue, because unless we're thinking that it's logical to believe that jaywalking on only 4 lanes instead of 6 is going to somehow reduce pedestrian fatalities. So, or injuries. So in that regard, I'm not real sure how the East Tennessee Street deal helps us in that regard. There are some other issues that we're dealing with here, and it has to do with some of our basic policies in place around the capital city. We've got a university that's encouraging people to drive to the university. We've got a city that's trying to reduce traffic on these roads. If we start narrowing Tennessee, I think what's going to happen, from what I've been hearing, we're going to start forcing automobiles onto the side streets. We're going to reduce the emphasis on, I think we're trying to use Call Street as a pedestrian and bikeway of some kind. So now we're going to be forcing them over to Tennessee Street somehow. So while I understand the need to do some long-range planning and understand some of the capacities we're going to run into over the next 10 years, we're going to have to do something with that. I'm not sure that that changing the striping on East Tennessee is going to help us in any of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Calvin Ogburn.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to be recorded as being opposed to this project. Let me offer an alternate solution, and that would be, if you've looked at Capitol Medical Boulevard, that's the road right there behind the community hospital, the city has caused to be built a metal guardrail of roughly the length of about 3 blocks there. It's very eye appealing. It's very functional. I think it would really do the job in terms of keeping people and cars separate on Tennessee Street. Now, if you can visualize this metal guardrail built along the area that's in question, and then along that guardrail there would be several, not one, but several breaks, which would then be pedestrian crossings. They would be suitably marked, cross-hatched on the street, amber light flashing above them, and an abundance of signs that would say, "Caution, jaywalkers are prosecuted," to urge the little citizens or the students to cross on these crosswalks. At either end of the subject that we're studying, I would propose that, again, we have amber caution lights and abundant number of signs that would say, "Caution, speed limits are reduced during peak pedestrian periods," thereby having a way to enforce a mandatory slowdown during ball games and other special events going on in that area. A lot of the time, the 30 miles an hour is quite adequate there, but of course, ball games after a celebration such as basketball, they need to slow it down. The kids and the citizens need to stay behind the iron railings and only cross at the approved crosswalks. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Next is T.K. Hanna, and to be followed by Ruth O'Donnell.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to be here, Commissioners and Mr. Mayor, distinguished city staff.
Give us your name and address.
T.K. Hanna.
Okay.
Can we have her address for the record, please?
4008 Deer Lane Drive.
Thank you.
Off Timberland. It was my pleasure to serve on the Citizens Input group here, and I'm retired after 35 years government service, so I do know a little bit about how government operates. But my wife said one evening after watching one of the city commission meetings on WCOT, says, you sit here and you complain, but why don't you go downtown and do that? Well, I didn't come down here to complain today, but I do appreciate the fact that we do have open government, and you can just flip on your TV set at home and watch and see what's going on in city government. I do want to thank your staff, have been wonderful to us. I see why y'all do so well on certain things, and others, I wonder, are we listening to the staff? But they bring so much information to you, and it's very hard to assimilate all this. But my main concern on the Tennessee Street, the West Tennessee Street part of this, I lived out West Tennessee Street as a student at FSU in 1971. I came in on West Tennessee Street every day. Unfortunately, I may be the only person that talks here today that's seen 2 tragedies on Tennessee Street or been involved in them. Many years ago, I was coming down in front of McDonald's when McDonald's used to be further out West Tennessee Street, and I saw a gentleman walk in front of a car and actually be hit. It's a terrible scene. Yeah, I didn't bring that here. It brings up memories. Several years ago, I was one of those people that got a call at 2 o'clock in the morning about someone being hit on Tennessee Street. So I do have a personal part in this. I do travel quite a bit. I've been to a lot of other cities, but bigger than Tallahassee, smaller than Tallahassee. And Tennessee Street, there's a Tennessee Street, unfortunately, in a lot of cities out there. And what have they done to minimize the problems that are associated with the 6-lane road with high-speed traffic going through essentially the center of town? It's been 6-lane for many, many, many years. As many people came out and wanted to talk about taking away 2 lanes, I think we would have just as many or more people come out and be interested in the one slide that says we were going to add 2 lanes. I think we'd have twice as many people here then. But the fact is that some of the alternatives that I think our group came up with, I would hope that you would take into consideration. The flashing lights by lowering the speed, it is a throughway, and you do that by lowering the speed. Adding medians, safe medians, inner block. I went online and looked at, I don't believe every statistics I see out there either, and I don't want y'all to either, but the Federal Highway Administration says that by adding these, we can reduce pedestrian crashes by 46% and motor vehicle crashes by up to 39%. It also slows traffic down when there's medians out there. I don't think you could find a person in Tallahassee that would say West Tennessee Street's a beautiful place. Let's make it a safer place. Thank you very much.
Give us those statistics if they're in writing some kind of way, will you?
I'd be glad to just leave this with you.
If you'd like to hand that to me, I'll...
Give them somebody and they'll copy them.
I can take that from you, sir.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Ruth O'Donnell.
My name is Ruth O'Donnell. I live at 3509 Trillium Court. Please excuse my voice. I have a vocal tremor. I'm here this morning because I am part of a group that has been studying the West Tennessee Street project. So I have a pretty good understanding as a citizen of what that project entails. I understand it to be a 1-year pilot, and I also understand that the Florida Department of Transportation has a lot to say about it. I read in the paper that the Florida Department of Transportation, the Secretary, has some concerns. It was not clear in the paper what those were, and I wish I knew more about that. However, I will tell you, as an individual living in the city for almost 50 years, that I remember when Tennessee Street became 6 lanes. I stopped driving on it then, if I could help it. I know all the ways to get around it. I walked on it the other day on the sidewalk on the, what's that, north side. It was scary, ladies and gentlemen. It was very scary. Cars whipped by me within inches. The sidewalk in some places is less than a foot wide because of the telephone poles. You can put up all the signs you want, but I don't know that people are going to read them. They don't read other signs. They don't slow for cross hatchings in this state. I would like to see the city try this for a year. Get the data that will tell us if it slows traffic. Although personally, I think that would be a good thing if it slows traffic. Maybe then I could begin to drive on Tennessee Street again. And as for the business people who have concern, I, for one, stopped going to their businesses. It's too dangerous. Please do what you can. Try this pilot. Thank you.
Next is Doug Mannheimer.
Thanks, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Doug Mannheimer, and thanks for your service. I think we don't tell you that often enough. I'm interested in this issue as a lifelong Tallahassee resident. Last summer, I learned of the pilot program and volunteered to serve on a citizens focus group to look at this project. After about 3 meetings and 5 hours of presentations, our citizens group voted 13-1 with 1 abstention to recommend to you that Call Street become the bike street, that you place 20-mile-per-hour school zone and pedestrian flashers at appropriate times and places your planning staff and law enforcement would determine, and that the lane restrictions be rejected. We also believe that mid-block crossings and transit priority for bus drivers are good ideas. We call this the common sense on Tennessee Street option. There's been diverse and broad-based community support for these safety recommendations and also rejection of the lane restrictions. FSU Student Government Organization urged rejection of the lane restrictions while citing traffic congestion, the dangers of mixing buses, bikes, and cars together, and the resultant use of campus streets for commuter traffic. The Student Senate concurred with a 48-0 resolution. They opposed lane restrictions, recommended guardrails, reduced speed zones, and urged Call Street be designated for bikes. You've heard from NEBA, the business representative of small business. They also cited the dangers of buses and bikes together, commuter traffic congestion, and diversion of traffic to neighborhoods. AFSCME, representing 20,000 government employees, I think had the most poignant line I've seen in this. Longtime President Jeanette Wynn, and we quote her, "The proposed pilot program will cause our members to waste expensive fuel while stalled in traffic and will cause them to lose precious time with their families before and after work due to increased travel times." Seminole Boosters concurred with other organizations after its state employees, university employees, and students had spoken with concerns that this would frustrate their efforts to bring people to Tallahassee for special events, both on game weekends and FSU events year-round. Our focus group found that Star Metro buses use each of the Tennessee Street lanes only 5 times per hour, once every 12 minutes during the day, 3 times per hour between 7 and 10 p.m., and 0 times between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. So picture these lanes in the evenings not being used at all except for bikers on Tennessee Street at night. We found Star Metro buses were able to reach their bus stops on schedule in both rush and non-rush hour traffic. We like what you did on Gain Street, but are concerned that we haven't completed the extension of FAMU Way, so we are restricting our only real east-west corridor. As Commissioner Miller has noted, we found that no parent would suggest to their child to ride a bike on Tennessee Street when parallel Call Street is available.
Excuse me, your time has expired.
All right, thank you. We urge common sense on Tennessee Street.
Let me ask you a question, Mr. Mannheimer, if I can. The Ask Me quote was, as you say, very, very poignant. But if we do anything, it's going to slow traffic down on that street, isn't it?
We think keeping 3 lanes is important. Notice on the flashers, we said at appropriate times and places. And I can tell you, when I think an appropriate time to slow traffic is going to be, it's going to be between 10:30 at night and 3 a.m. in front of Ken's Bar. I'll just get to the...
Oh, no, I'm just saying, but we're going to slow traffic regardless of what we do. It's going to slow the traffic down, and it's going to cause those people who use that road to not get to their families, not get to their work on time, and regardless.
In mediating this issue, we think keeping 3 lanes open but slowing traffic at appropriate times is the appropriate thing to do.
Okay, well, no, I think you got a point with the Ask Me thing, but we want to make sure that we do it correctly.
There's a balance. Yeah. You're right, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. William O. Bell will be followed by Bo Schmitz.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners and staff. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning. I've been a resident of the city of Tallahassee for 44 years, and last summer I was asked on behalf of Seminole Boosters to serve, and Seminole Boosters, as you all know, represents about 14,000 Friends of Florida State University. Last summer, was asked to serve on the Moving Tallahassee Cars Optional Plan as a result of some issues and concerns that Seminole Boosters had on some developments that we have going on. We heard about 5 hours of staff presentations, as Doug mentioned, and the plan, and had very extensive discussion with staff and with experts. After these discussions, I was one of the 13 that voted for the common sense on Tennessee Street option and encouraging the designation of Call Street, which has already been mentioned this morning. We did not think that the lane restrictions for buses and bikes on Tennessee Street was appropriate. I reported this back to Seminole Boosters, and we heard from FSU Student Government Association, Student Senate, from valued state employees, from small businesses on Tennessee Street, and Seminole Boosters wrote you a letter, and I think it's in your packet. It's a letter from Brian Swain, and I provided copies of those again this morning. But Seminole Boosters is working with the city to encourage visitors, as you know, to come to Tallahassee, stay in our hotels, shop, and eat in our restaurants. We believe that inevitable traffic congestion, which would result from restricted traffic lanes, particularly in the pilot program, which we understand would cover the next 2 falls, would be damaging to some of those efforts. Even if lanes were opened by special signs on game day, visitors and local citizens would be confused, face unnecessary delays and frustration on weekends, and certainly all during the year. Seminole Boosters certainly appreciates the partnership we have with the city on the Gaines Street expansion and the rebirth of Gaines Street. That's going very, very well. And other projects that we work with the city on a daily basis. We urge you to follow the recommendation of our students, our valued government employees, our small business owners, and the project's own Citizens Focus Group in promoting safety through the use of Call Street, the 20-mile-per-hour flashers at appropriate times, and certainly not restricting traffic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Bo Schmitz, to be followed by Alma Gonzalez.
Good morning. Bo Schmitz, General Manager of the 4 Points by Sheraton downtown, 3161 West Tennessee Street. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. In hearing a lot of the comments this morning, I have up to this point tried to have an open mind and continue to do so. I think like other business owners and business managers on West Tennessee, there are some concerns over the enforcement and this plan. However, I also realize as a relatively new resident to Tallahassee that there is a chronic traffic and parking issue as it relates to this area on Tennessee Street. I see pros and cons to the pilot program. And I think more than anything else, what I would like to see is the focus on enhancing the pedestrian experience and also promoting bus ridership. I think that those 2 things are really prevalent to our business. I know that I share the view that when you walk on Tennessee Street as it is today, that it is scary, it is unsafe, it feels unsafe to me. And I would like to see that remedied. I'm not sure that this program addresses it fully. I think that the reduced traffic on those outside lanes is a positive thing from a pedestrian experience. However, with a bus increasing speed, I think that also adds another element of danger, of fear. So I think we need to address maybe, in addition to the lowered traffic, the guardrail in addition to that, so people feel safer about walking about the city. And then the promote bus ridership, I think, is an equally important issue to get people to ride the buses, to decrease the cars, to then make the whole scenario flow better. So again, I'm not sure whether this pilot program will work as it's intended, but I think those are the things that I would like to see focused upon. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alma Gonzalez, and will be followed by Rick Moore.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and City Commissioners, staff. For the record, my name is Alma Gonzalez. I work at 3064 Highland Oaks Terrace, Tallahassee, Florida, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the hardworking public employees represented by the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. We've distributed a letter to you regarding this particular issue. Our concern, of course, is for the 20,000 state employees that we represent here in Tallahassee and Leon County. But in addition, I want to point out to you that we represent the employees at Florida State University as well as Florida A&M University. The Tennessee Street corridor is an important corridor for our folks in terms of commuting back and forth. Unfortunately, not everybody can live in the city of Tallahassee and not everybody lives downtown. So we have to have a corridor that makes it possible for our folks to come to work. As someone who represents those employees, I know that one of the strictest guidelines that's adhered to by the state employer and the university employers is timeliness and attendance. And if you are late coming to work, you will be disciplined. That's just the reality of it. It is important for us to be able to ensure that our folks get to and from work on a timely basis. At $3.75 a gallon for gasoline, the last thing we need to do is to have our very poorly paid public employees sitting in traffic. I really commend the Commission and in particular celebrate your staff. There's nothing like public employees and the work that they do, the expertise that they bring to the table. Certainly I appreciate the recommendation for the pilot project, but I must say that we've heard several other alternatives here today that may be more viable, and I would urge you to vote against this particular matter. Thank you.
Ms. Gonzalez, I asked Doug Manheimer a question about, we're going to slow traffic down regardless, it looks like. How does that strike you in terms of your objective and that of Jeanette Wynn, in terms of the employees getting back and forth to work and being on time? We're going to slow, apparently traffic's going to be slowed down based on whatever we do. But so.
It's an excellent observation, Mr. Mayor, and the question is not whether you're going to slow traffic down, but to what extent you're going to slow traffic down, and to what extent you're going to force our folks to select other alternatives that are even slower than the ones that we currently have. Moving to the kinds of alternatives that have been discussed here today, other than the pilot project, I think will ensure that you achieve the balance that you're looking for to promote the kinds of corridor that you want that increases safety but still takes into account the important use of that corridor for employees.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Rick Moore to be followed by Sue Dick.
Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners, staff. My name is Rick Moore, 805 North Gadsden Street. I am here today as a board member of the Chamber of Commerce. I happen to chair a committee called the Growth Management Committee, and from time to time the Chamber engages in issues that rise to a level of import in the community. The Chamber is extremely supportive of this process. We were happy to serve as a partner with the city to help connect businesses along Tennessee Street to the information push both from staff and from the Citizens Committee. Chamber staff walked the 2-mile corridor, delivered flyers inviting business owners and general managers of businesses along Tennessee Street to a meeting at Mama Goldberg's Deli. The meeting was held in the morning, was moderated to really move the information that the city's plan, both on the multimodal district and specifically some Tennessee Street work, and also to communicate or push out the possibility of alternatives. We then turned the meeting over to the business owners and just really listened to what they had to say. And if there was a resounding comment that came back from businesses, it was a concern about safety. And it was a concern about not being forgotten as all of the attention is focused on gains. They really want a beautiful and safe place to work. There were no businesses in that meeting that were supportive of the reduction from 6 lanes to 4 lanes. We didn't have every business represented, probably a range of 30 businesses directly represented, maybe 50 if you talked about the real estate brokers who were there that represented other rental properties up and down Tennessee Street. But the sense was that it was the decision would be bad for business, and again, as the chamber, we were there narrowly listening to and trying to develop a voice for those business owners in the process. The chamber remains interested and supportive of the entire multimodal process. This one element of the process is problematic. We support coordination with the Department of Transportation, searching other alternative safe travel ways for bicycles. And we are supportive of trying to link together, in addition to the business community, link together, give a voice to FSU and FAMU. I think their student bodies are users of this process and are going to be integral in the final solution. In closing, I would tell you that we look forward to continued involvement with the city on the next steps as you get deeper into your multimodal process. And the chamber board at some point in time will assimilate all the input and establish a position and would communicate that to you.
Yeah, let me make sure I understand. You all have not established a position as of yet. Is that correct?
That's right. We entered into a process to listen first, okay, and then develop a position second.
Okay. Gotcha.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sue Dick, to be followed by Harrison DuBoser.
Good morning, Sue Dick, 412 Plantation Road. Just wanted to follow Rick Moore as staff person and president of the Greater Tallahassee Chamber of Commerce. Here representing close to 1,500 business members, but also the 8,000 plus business licenses within our Tallahassee-Leon County area. 2 points. Rick highlighted our work, and our goal is to work in partnership and to convene our businesses to allow the opportunity for them to provide input. I'll also say as staff, I've had the opportunity to talk to businesses not located on West Tennessee Street, and their interest as to not only what this plan would bring, but the overall 18 square mile multimodal plan, and emphasizing how important it is to look out into the future and recognizing that it is important to provide opportunities for businesses to not only get to and from and their clients and their client base, but to look future and to see what the plan is for a growing community and the opportunity for business development and economic development. I also want to take, if I can, a moment to recognize the businesses. In walking and talking to those business owners, you have business owners who have been there close to 40 years this year, celebrating 40 years with Furran Auto, and you'll probably hear from him in a little bit, but also new businesses like Mama Goldberg's that opened up. You have property owners that are making investments on West Tennessee Street, and I think that is a strong statement in this economy and as to where we are as a community. So to thank those businesses and thank them for coming out this morning and speaking, and appreciate the ability to work with city staff to provide input and the participation that took place at that meeting that was held. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Harrison DuBoser, followed by Asamina Butsukas.
Good morning. My name is Harrison Dubasar, and I'm a student at Florida State University, as well as a senator in the 64th Student Senate. I am the sponsor of that resolution, which I have brought copies for all of you today. The resolution doesn't only come out with our stance, which is in opposition. It offers alternatives that FSU students feel would be a little bit more suiting for our student body. I'm here representing the 42,000 students at Florida State University. Like I said, not only do we oppose, but via unanimous consent within the Senate, which is something that rarely ever happens. This is, not only dangerous to the drivers, it's dangerous to the students who choose to walk, which a lot of students do choose to walk because it is very hard to be parking on campus. It's dangerous to the bikers. I personally am a biker. I would not feel comfortable as it is now. I've spoken to numerous students, I guess they would be my constituents within my college, as well as around, and I mean, it seems to us that it's not the safest option. One thing that we would like to see is a guardrail put up on Tennessee Street. We feel that that would definitely minimize a good amount of the risks that the students are at. Another thing that I just wanted to talk about, and I promise I'll make this quick, aside from a student senator, I'm an orientation leader. And this summer, I will have to explain this to the thousands of parents.
When you say this and that, you're talking about the plan.
Yeah, my apologies.
Yeah, you're talking about the plan.
Not only the plan, but the proposed plan, as well as what's going on right now, giving a little bit of a background.
Give us a distinction, because I'm getting somewhat mixed up in when you say what's happening now. Is the now referring to the plan, or the now referring to what's in place, what's happening now?
Beginning with the safety concerns that are already with Tennessee Street, and what the plan, or the proposed plan is right now. So that, I would have to discuss both ends as to what's happening right now and as to what would be happening in the future. I hope that clarifies it a little bit more. And that was a question last year that came up from a lot of family members, a lot of students, the safety, because we do have DeGraff Hall, which is on the other side of Tennessee Street, which has a high amount of pedestrian traffic. So there are going to be a lot of concerns for the family members. And I mean, I'm going to stand in opposition with the entire FSU student government. And I do want to give you all... To the plan. Okay. And I want to give you the resolution so you all have a copy of it and so you can read it over. But with that, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Harrison, quick couple of questions. I don't assume you were in the student government in 2007.
No, I was not.
That's okay. It's all right.
My brother was, though.
Well, it was the student government president and a number of student senators and students who actually came to the city proposing this initially. And I understand that with different years and different administrations, views change. What I'm interested in, you mentioned as a orientation leader, I assume that is the person who interacts with new students coming to campus. How does the university right now talk about pedestrian safety, how you all sort of conduct yourselves as students? And I know these are generally freshmen that are coming in, but particularly as it interacts with Tennessee Street, biking, busing, walking. I'm just curious to know how that works.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, as it stands, we have a full-on responsible freedom, which is a combination of responsible freedom for our students' presentation, but it also talks about safety. As a student, it discusses our Safe Bus, our Knoll Cab, which is, for those of you who don't know, our Knoll Cab is a student government-run way to get students home at night. It's a safer alternative that offers cheaper fares for students. But getting back to the answer, Chief Perry is the one who leads this session of our Florida State Police Department, and he talks about pedestrian safety, biker safety, and he warns that it is, it is the real world, it is dangerous, and that you always need to be looking out for, to make sure that you're being safe first, because it starts with you as a student, and then, it goes to everyone else.
Okay. One other question. The Vice President of Student Affairs accompanied the delegation that worked over a series of months on this issue back in 2007 and 2008. I believe it was Dr. Colburn then, and she may still be there. But is you all's position encompassing of the university's position, or has I've not heard from, and I don't believe we've had a letter yet from the administration.
Speaking after me will be our Director of Governmental Affairs from Student Government, and I believe that she might be able to speak to that more than I will.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Asamina, and I will let her pronounce her last name in case I got it wrong the first time. Followed by Adam Anthony Biblo.
You actually did a great job with it. Good morning. My name is Asamina Butsuga Simi. I live at 2110 Jackson Bluff. I am representing the Student Government Association. I serve as the Director of Governmental Affairs. And I first of all want to thank you all for coming to our roundtable meeting that we had back in December regarding this issue. We took some time to educate ourselves about the issue and really look at all the different alternatives and what some of the concerns might be before we presented you with the letter that we submitted. So I first of all would like to answer Commissioner Gillum's question. The administration I've not spoken with Dr. Coburn specifically. At the roundtable meeting, we did have Vice President Carnegie, and he was opposed to the pilot project. And so that's the only administrator that I have had a personal discussion with on the issue, but I can find out more for you and have them submit a stance to you as well. But in representing the Student Government Association, we do have a few concerns with the pilot program. I'd like to separate it as two separate issues. First of all, the bikes on Tennessee Street and a bike and bus lane and a strictly bus-only lane. As far as the bus and bike lane, the main issues that we have are safety concerns. I understand that the student government did present this as an alternative a few years ago, but in looking at the bikes specifically, when you have buses and bikes in one lane, you may have buses and bikes having to go around each other, needing to turn into businesses, then you add the right turn, put cars into there, and it just seems like a very dangerous mix. And that's the biggest concern that we have with that portion of it. If you were to take out the bikes and send them to Call Street and leave this as a bus-only lane, we still have a few concerns, which are addressed in the letter that I sent to you. The first is that if you just have a designated bus and bike lane with no increase in bus services, it's not really accomplishing the goal. If we want to transport more people, I know that the point is not necessarily to transport more cars, but to transport more people within Tallahassee. If we want to do that, we need to see an increase in bus services as well, because if you have the same amount of buses, many students spoke at that roundtable meeting about waiting out for the bus and buses flying past them because they're already full. If they can't have a bus system that they can rely on, that they know is going to be available when they need to take a bus to campus, they're not going to ride and they're still going to take their car. You're not going to decrease traffic at all. It's just going to have one less lane for that same amount of cars, since you're still going to have the same amount of people riding the buses. So that is our biggest concern with that portion of it. So we're really looking at safety here. We do believe that the safety problem would be solved with a guardrail along Tennessee Street. We think that that is a very easy solution. As one of the prior speakers mentioned, that sidewalk is very narrow in some sections, and when students are in large groups walking together, sometimes in the evenings they don't hesitate to walk straight into the street because they know that they are just with a group and they don't even think to look behind them. And so I think that's a big concern for us, but in looking at Call Street as an alternative, in looking at the guardrails, those are some of the issues that we'd like to see as alternatives here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Adam Anthony Biblo, followed by, is it Maida Williams?
Hi, good morning, Commission. Thanks for the opportunity for the public hearing. This is Adam Anthony Biblo, 1316 Lehigh Drive. You're talking about the multimodal district. I want to congratulate you for all the work you've been doing there and other agencies. A lot of work on Lafayette Street, Franklin Boulevard. It's going to be a tremendous asset to our community, to our neighborhoods. I live in Lehigh Acres, which is part of Indian Head Lehigh Neighborhood Association. We strongly support this. I've worked with Woodlands Drive's neighborhood. They strongly support that work. And I'm going to remind you that we're also talking about that part of town. But I will say the work that staff's done on Tennessee Street, I think that's a very worthy consideration the plan put forth. Earlier on, and when I was staff, we looked at removing a lane on each side, and if I were advising you, I would still recommend today to remove one traffic lane, and I think the best thing you could do is slow traffic down, not speed it up, slow it down and make it more congested. It's safer for pedestrians, and it actually increases the volume of automobile riders, okay? We'll get back to that if you want, but let me tell you a few things. Magnolia Drive, after you finish Tennessee Street demonstration project, should be the priority, because that's a major corridor that runs between Monroe and Capitol Circle Southeast. That and Blairstone are the only two north-south corridors in the southeastern part of the urban area. And unlike these other corridors, Magnolia is devoid of pedestrian facilities. It's devoid of bicycle facilities. Recently, thankfully, you provided some marked transit stops. It had some transit service, but now the transit stops are marked. But in very few locations are there sidewalks or concrete pads for these transit stops. And I'm sure your staff will correct me, but I don't recall any covered shelters on Magnolia. I know it's a difficult retrofit, but it needs to be done. It will help provide the linkage and connection between all the great work that's being done along Lafayette and right now the Lafayette-Magnolia intersection, the other work along Lafayette, access to Cascades Park. People can walk a mile or two. That's not the prescribed distance for walking. I know it's a quarter mile to a half mile if you're an urban planner, but a lot of us can walk if you make it safe to walk. Right now, it's not safe to ride a bicycle along Magnolia. It's not safe too often. It's not safe to cross Magnolia, and oftentimes it's not safe for transit riders to wait in the dark without lights. So I wanted to leave you with that as important, that you need to think about moving up that project, retrofitting Magnolia Drive. And if you have any questions on Tennessee Street or a pedestrian crossing of North Monroe near Lake Ella, which I highly endorse, let me know. I'm here for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Maida Williams, and the speaker following will be Brett Bosarge.
Hey, y'all.
Hey. Hey, Maida.
Maida Williams. Let's see, which address you want, business or home? 635 West Tennessee Street, celebrating 30 years of business in that location right in the middle of Tennessee Street. So, lots of things to talk about. One thing I want to bring to mention, I really appreciate the city's thought about and planning about having all these processes and meetings. This is my 4th meeting about this subject. And I just want to talk about the one that we had at Mama Goldberg's. The sentiment really was not only no, but hell no from the businesses. And if you took a vote of the whole city, I think the vote would be overwhelmingly, please don't do this project as it stands now. This is so controversial, kind of like Blairstone. How many years did that take?
20.
Wow. And we're going to rush into this in what, months? I think this needs to be a well thought out process that doesn't hurt the people that really have skin in the game, such as landowners, business owners, employees of these business owners. It really needs to be decided upon the rule of thumb of common sense. Doug Mannheimer and his group did an excellent job. I agree with every one of those suggestions, and I think pretty much most of the businesses on Tennessee Street also. Simi spoke so well just now, speaking from FSU, and the gentleman before her for the FSU student. I mean, one solution I really wish I would like to parlay out there to float it to FSU is, at one time, freshmen did not drive their cars to Tallahassee. They had to bike, they had to walk. That might reduce the core traffic within this 2-mile area. If we can reduce that traffic, and if we could, because those guys don't really need to pick up children or grandchildren or go to the dry cleaners or go to the grocery store. They have minimal needs. They really can walk and bike. So anywho, nothing against bikers. I think bikers have nerves of steel, and if they want to drive down Tennessee Street, it's like putting mice and elephants together. I think it would be really dangerous. I mean, the elephants might be running over the mice like crazy. I think if people wanted to bike down Tennessee Street, they can do it. Just like people want to drive down Tennessee Street, they should do it. We agree that it should be safer. We agree that we should slow down the traffic. Let's go through this and think about what is the common sense measures that make the most sense.
Excuse me, your time has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh. Okay. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Brett Bosarge. Address is 3216 Proud Clarion Trail. I'm here this morning as a representative of the Northeast Business Association, otherwise known as NEBA. NEBA has also provided a letter to you as well. NEBA is an association of over 166 dues-paying member businesses located all throughout Tallahassee, not just in the Northeast. Our association has appointed a group of members to research and study this lane restriction proposal. And in fact, one of our members was also on the Citizens Focus Group that the city staff assembled to study this proposal. The result of both the NEBA committee and the Citizens Focus Group is this lane restriction proposal needs to be rejected and canceled. There are several factual details that NEBA considered when coming to this conclusion,
First, which has been widely mentioned, is the safety hazard. The combination of bikes and buses in the same space is a dangerous combination. Heaven forbid it, but if a biker gets injured by a city bus, the city's going to be instantly involved in a lawsuit. So the safety hazards are paramount. The second main issue is that the east-west traffic across town has already been constrained. The promised traffic capacity reroute that was to accompany the Gaines Street construction has not occurred. This FAMU Way extension, when completed, will alleviate some of the east-west traffic constriction, but as of now, it's still constrained. In addition to that, merging traffic coming from the Monroe Street corridor, merging onto Tennessee in both directions, is already backing up, especially along the stretch right in front of Cypress Restaurant, coming into the West Tennessee Street section. So if this proposal proceeds, traffic will likely increase in the surrounding neighborhoods, which can cause new pedestrian concerns. The third issue that NEBA has is that the commerce is going to be adversely affected. Tallahassee is actively trying to encourage new members or visitors to come into town, but excessive driving times is going to harm the Tennessee Street businesses, and that would be harming the owners and the employees of those companies, as consumers will choose to patronize less congested shopping and dining alternatives. NEBA agrees that improvements to pedestrian safety are definitely needed, and we've proposed some sensible alternatives along with some of the other groups that have spoke to you today. Pedestrian zones with flashing signage at sensible intersections makes sense. Railings and guardrails at the most dangerous areas. Improving sidewalks and medians where appropriate, and encouraging bicycle traffic to use other existing bike trails in the Call Street corridor are very sensible solutions to help this proposal without a lane restriction. We thank you for considering NEBA's findings, and NEBA strongly urges you to cancel any proposed lane restrictions for the Tennessee Street corridor. Thank you.
Next speaker is Tracy Cohen. That'll be our final speaker unless there's someone who has not submitted a card.
If anybody out there would like to speak, please get a sign-in sheet and bring it up here so we can make sure that you get the opportunity to speak this morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak. My name is Tracy Cohen. I'm the owner of Target Copy at 635 West Tennessee Street. Maida and I are related. I just wanted to take a few minutes and just kind of reiterate what she had to say, along with several of the other businesses who have spoken. It's not that we are not interested in safety. It's not that we're not interested in reducing the amount of traffic on Tennessee Street. It's just that we want to make sure that it's done correctly. I think that using this timeline that we have, 2014, this repaving project, is a good start, but I don't think it's the final answer. If we're going to be spending some time repaving for the pilot project in the summer, if we're going to be spending time and energy on that, why can't we repave after the road, repaint after the road has been repaved in 2014? If we're in that much of a hurry, it just seems like we are rushing into things without taking everything into consideration. There are a couple things that I wanted to just bring up. There exists a master trails and bikes plan at FSU, and I wonder if anyone's taken the time to integrate that FSU bikes and trails plan with the plan that's here. That plan has been in place for about 15 years, and it's something that exists at FSU and should be considered when it comes to this project. Again, and the other thing is a speeding issue. If safety is the real concern here, why aren't we policing the streets more? Why aren't there speed traps on Tennessee Street? I think that in addition to the bus and bike thing where we're talking about a potential lawsuit, we're also opening ourselves up to a lawsuit when someone gets hit by a car that's speeding, and this has been a problem for 15 years. There's something that's been, there's been multiple issues brought up about this, and no one's consistently policing the street, and it needs to be taken care of. And again, just to reiterate what Maida said, there are 2 individuals in this town that can reduce the traffic on Tennessee Street, and that their names are James Ammons and Eric Barron. I wonder if anyone has sat down with them and talked about the freshman car issue. If it's about safety, let's talk about a speed trap. If it's about reducing the amount of traffic, let's talk about freshmen bringing their cars to campus. There are other alternatives here, and I just want to make sure that we're considering them all. Thank you.
Okay.
That's the final speaker.
That was the final speaker. Commission discussion is where we are at this point. Any comments, commissioners? Commissioner Gillum.
Sure. Well, first I want to say thank you to everybody who came out and spoke today. The comments were absolutely rich. I don't think I heard much of a bad suggestion. And I also want to just, I guess, remind people that many of the suggestions that were made are ones that we considered in 2007, quite frankly, very, very early on. We went over the other day and met with the Secretary of Transportation because he waded into this, and one of the reasons why I thought it was so urgent that we go visit him after he waded into this is because the alternatives around creating more pedestrian crosswalks, the alternatives around creating flashing lights on Tennessee Street, alternatives around railing and so on and so forth were all alternatives that we presented to the Department of Transportation, 2007, 2008, that were flatly rejected. And in our meeting, we reminded them that they flatly rejected those alternatives when we brought them to them. What was reassuring from the Secretary is that he seemed very open to the consideration of these alternatives now. And what was also good about that conversation is his Secretary for this region, who was a part of the decision to deny those requests, was also in attendance, and I think heard very clearly the Secretary's, I think, openness to wanting to consider these as options. I know that we're not at a decision-making time, but I did just want to weigh in on this consideration to say that I think our consideration right now is twofold. There are some short-term issues that do have to be addressed with regards to safety. But as stated during the staff presentation, we are also considering a 2035 transportation plan. And I hope that we all stay open to that as the dialogue moves forward. And I won't make suggestions now, but after our next meeting, I do look forward to making some suggested alternatives to some of the discussion that we're having at the moment. But there is a long history here, and the state has played a significant role. The only other comment that I would make at this moment is the culpability of Florida State University and its administration. When in 2007 they came over, they were very much so in support of an alternative. They were very much so in tune with the pedestrian concerns of the students there. In that it is not enough, in my opinion, and I actually would go further and say I think it's irresponsible for the university or the administration at FAMU or FSU to sort of sit on the sidelines here while we reckon with the safety and pedestrian concerns as well as traffic concerns that are created in large part by the existence and the huge dependency on that roadway by many of the students who traffic it. This is not a blame game. I think the Commission is trying to show its openness to alternatives here and solving this problem, but we can't do it by ourselves. We have to have the partnership of the business community, of Florida State University, of Florida A&M University, the state of Florida, and other residents in this community, because although Tennessee Street runs through Florida State University, it's essential to this community. It serves everybody here, and all of us have interest there, not just the folks who depend on that roadway every day, but those who live in this community are concerned about our quality of life. So I look forward to hearing more comment and then getting towards a solution.
Commissioner Muschin.
I've said this before, but say it one more time briefly. I consider my greatest failing as a city commissioner in the 10 years I've been here, and really nothing approaches this in my mind, was our failure to get Florida State to work with us, and particularly the student government at Florida State, and not put all their student fees into building 6 parking garages, but instead put it towards the transit system. You have to, the exact figures are, I don't have them in front of me, but it's something along the lines of this. 7 times more students at the University of Florida ride the bus system than Florida State University students do. I was so happy to hear Maida and Ms. Cohen mention the idea about freshmen not bringing their cars to campus, because we sat down early in my tenure here and talked to President Weatherall about that. Didn't want any part of it. Mr. Baines, who I rarely agree with, is right on when he says, you know, FSU encourages people more or less, bring your car to Tallahassee. And so, you know, the future of Tennessee Street is a bleak one. I mean, we can do nothing, and it will get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And so we need to do something, and we're trying to, you know, we don't have the perfect solution, we may not find the perfect solution, but we're going to have to do something. And so that's kind of what we're about here. And I really would welcome the opportunity to work with, you know, we have a new president who we've had a very good working relationship so far with, and I think the opportunity maybe is there with the business community. Go down and talk to the president and say, what can we do to help the situation, short term and long term. So I think that would be a really positive thing that we could work on together.
Commissioner, anybody?
I guess it's my turn. First of all, I want to thank Sue Dick and Rick from the Chamber for an absolutely excellent meeting at Mama Goldberg's. I mean, the work that you did to get to the business owners, to get everybody out, get everybody coming in there was just fabulous. And you did an excellent job of carrying through. The meeting was very well organized. I really, Rick was humorous in his presentation, and yet he moved everything along, so thank you for what you did. That was a big help. It was a big help to us, too, because it was a chance for us to get down there, meet the owners, and so on. There's no doubt that it's hard to find anyone who owns a business on Tennessee Street who thinks this is a good idea. At this point, I realize that we're not supposed to be in a decision-making mode, but I have pretty much decided where I am on this. I don't consider it a win to toss this idea out the window, because I think I believe that it would have worked. It has unfortunately been sold as a bus-bike lane. I've spent more time explaining that we weren't closing the lane to people than I have to any other aspect of this. I've had people from San Luis Mission, San Luis neighborhood, and everywhere all over town asking me, please don't close the lane on Tennessee Street. And that the fact that that was never the intention has not made it across. I was looking at this survey, and it basically says, well, heck, no. Nobody wants to close a lane on Tennessee Street and turn it into a bus-bike lane. I'm not sure who mentioned that I had commented about that I would not recommend to any parent that they put their student on a bicycle on Tennessee Street, and I hold that opinion also. There's no margin for error there. The lanes end right beside the curb because they had to restripe a 4-lane road. So I think that it would be wise for us to, given the fact that, thank you for your leadership, Commissioner Gillum, in going to see the DOT Secretary and our staff, because I think that has opened up a lot of alternatives that we didn't have. And I want to reiterate what Commissioner Gillum said about all these things that you all have been suggesting. Our staff has been suggesting. This was brought to us in 2007. They've been working on this for years with the DOT district office, which is the appropriate place where we would normally go for this. You don't go to the secretary's office to talk over district issues. So these suggestions have all been brought forward. They've all been rejected, and this is what we were left in the end of the day. Not today. That's changed, and now we have the opportunity to try to negotiate some of these other things. And with that said, I'd like to say that as you go forward, because I know that you're going to be working on this continuously, as you go forward, I think that what I'd like to say to you from my perspective is that there needs to be a lot more emphasis on pedestrian safety in terms of what we can do with the sidewalks. I'm not too excited about putting a guardrail all the way down the road just because of the aesthetics, but there are mechanisms that have been been used in other communities that are very attractive, that serve the same purpose. So if we're going to spend money on this road, I would really like to see us spend it on enhancing those sidewalks. That's basically it from my perspective, but I do think that we really need to look at other alternatives, because I can see that this, no matter whether this works or not, it's always going to be perceived as not working, and so I don't think that it really has a chance of working.
Commissioner Zipper.
Clearly, this commission considers this a serious matter. We've had one emergency meeting. We're having this public hearing. We, as of now, have another one in 2 weeks. In my tenure, we haven't done anything like that before. And so clearly, the decision on what we do with West Tennessee Street is weighing heavy on all of us that are up here in addition to our staff. There is, and I think sometimes we lose sight of it, there is this bigger picture. There's the whole multimodal area, and we seem to be focusing on West Tennessee Street because there's this opportunity. And quite frankly, it's one of our biggest issues because it's our east-west corridor. But I don't want us in this community to lose sight that really the discussion is about what we want our transportation system to look like in 20 years. And I wish we would be spending more time as a government having that discussion with the community and starting to have those meetings so we can talk about, for example, where mass transit corridors other than buses might be, where streetcars might go, where high-speed rail might go, because we can't widen roads because we destroy neighborhoods and we destroy business districts and we destroy the fabric and trees and lots of other things that we love. And that's what we really should be talking about, in my opinion. We're still sitting here with FSU administration and FAMU, for the most part, on the sideline. We've heard from the boosters, we've heard from the employees, we've heard from the students, but no administration. Now, we have expressed by having emergency meetings and by having these hearings how important this is. My suggestion, and I see Mike Pate out here, who has a great relationship with the universities and has been doing a lot of research and programming on town and gown, I would suggest, rather than a representative of this commission, I think all 5 of us, maybe through Mr. Pate, through our staff, we need to be having an emergency meeting with Eric Barron and talk about, President Barron, what are you going to do? Because without the university, mainly Florida State, and I'm saying that no offense to Florida A&M, but we're talking about Tennessee Street now, what are you going to do to help us? Because we are trying to solve a problem that they can have an awful lot to do with. So I would strongly suggest that if we're going to have any more meetings, we have Eric Barron sit down with us, or I was going to say somebody else high level, but I sure would like to have the president of the university with us to talk about it. This pilot program, while I think well-intended and heavily researched, and I congratulate my staff because you've done a very thorough job, is loaded with unintended consequences. And that's the biggest problem when we make decisions up here, is what happens because of those decisions. And I am concerned, while it has merit, the consequences alternatively could be far greater and create far greater problems than we're trying to fix. So as I've said before, and I've publicly said, I'm still opposed to this project. I would like to see more vetting on the alternatives. I would like to see us go in a different direction. And I would like to see us, quite frankly, the sooner the better, have a discussion on whether we're really going to move forward with this, because we're putting a lot of staff time in this, and I think, me personally, as one of the commissioners here, we need to be going in a different direction far sooner than later. Thank you.
Well, a lot has been said, and the good thing about being the mayor, you get the last say on this, and I like that. At times, sometimes I don't. First of all, let me say that I have been a friend of Tennessee Street for longer than you've had Target Copy, Maida. And I went to school at FSU in the 60s, and Tennessee Street was there. And Tennessee Street has always been dangerous. I doubt that any time during the period that I was at FSU, I crossed Tennessee Street. I probably can count them on one hand, maybe, because I was scared. So I was not. I was concerned about my safety on Tennessee Street. So this is not in any way a new issue, and at all. And we do need to do something about it. So I don't know when we're going to do it. You know, it's 40 years, and when we're going to do it. When are we going to do something about this issue? And now we're saying, you know, let's wait and do some more studying. Well, we all know that it's dangerous. We all know right now that we need to do something about the movement of cars on that street and how efficiently and effectively we can move people as opposed to cars. We know that, and we need to do something about that. And I'm not opposed to looking at this closely, but I will be opposed to putting up the alternatives, whatever they are, and they begin to look like a permanent solution. Because we cannot have that. The alternatives that have been presented are very, very good. I mean, I can't argue against them. I can't, you know, find a reason why not. But I think we all realize that something has to be done with Tennessee Street. And I don't want any solution that we come up with, whatever it is, should not be looked at as a permanent solution. I don't care what it is. So what I would propose is that we begin almost immediately. Commissioner Ziffer suggested, you know, community dialogues and that kind of thing. I'd have no problems with that, but we need to do something about Tennessee Street, because it's been the same way except for the adding of the 2 lanes. It's been as dangerous in 40 years ago as it has as now. And this was an attempt. Now, Commissioner Gillum talked to the Secretary of DOT. Let us not forget that Tennessee Street is not a city road. It is a federal highway and a state road. And we have, and as Commissioner Gillum said, we went to DOT with some of the very solutions that you all are now, everybody now believes would be a good solution, and they rejected them. So our staff, as they should, went back to the drawing board, and they said, okay, here's another solution. Took that to the Secretary of DOT. No, that's a high bar. That's not a solution. So if we're going to begin to study this issue, we need to have not only the university presidents at the table, we need to have DOT, because eventually they're going to make the final decision. And why should what we have done, we come up with a solution, we go to them, they reject it. We come up with another solution, we go to them, and they reject it. I'm suggesting that we make sure that the DOT is at the table so they can tell us what they want, what they find, what they see as the solution. So all of this, and we have to find a long-term solution for this. We can't put a Band-Aid on this and say, oh, it's going to work forever, because it's not. Commissioner Mushton, and it's not, that's Commissioner Mushton's point. It's not. And the universities, we did not have the kind of dialogue with the universities to preclude them from building more parking garages. They're building another one now, right next to the stadium. So this is a solution that requires a lot of community support, a lot of community input, the universities, you know, the business community, everybody, the city, county, so we can solve this. And Commissioner Ziffer is correct as well when he says it's bigger than this, Tennessee Street. There are more things that we have to consider, and that's what our staff has been trying to do. They've been trying very hard to consider the really big picture. This one came up as a potential solution to something that we saw this, and it has not been totally rejected by FDOT, but they have raised a bar that they even say is very, very high. So those are my comments. We got another here. I'm going to continue to listen. We've got another hearing coming up. I will be there. I want to listen some more. And I want, I'd like staff staff has already taken into consideration many of the remedial activities that you all want. But if there are others, please give them to the staff. Commissioner.
Gabe, I have a couple of questions. Since we do know now that the Secretary of Transportation at least is open to some of the early alternatives that we discussed with regards to signalization, I think we had also talked about adding the whole no turn on right possibility in some locations where they're highly pedestrian trafficked, but because the car has the green light and the student has the, or whoever, the pedestrian has a walk sign, we end up in some trouble there. I acknowledge firsthand some of the trouble that we had at Macomb in Tennessee when I rode Star Metro, and the students who were getting off at Macomb were I mean, it didn't matter what the light color was. They were darting out to just catch the connection of the bus on the other side. But to the point of DOT's appetite for adjustment, I think we do have an obligation to strike at least while the iron is somewhat hot. With regards to some of our alternatives, by our next meeting, do you think it's possible for the staff to resurface some of those specific suggestions?
Right, that's good.
And bring those to the commission so that we can at least have those on our radar as we contemplate the short-term solution on Tennessee Street. To the longer-term solution, Mr. Mayor, because it does sound like at least there's a majority of the commission that doesn't have an appetite on the lane closure, at least at this point. But there is a longer-term question here that we're supposed to be considering, and I think it was Tracy who made the point earlier, that we do have a little bit more of a planning horizon, I think beyond even 2014. We do have the 2013 study that Star Metro is going to be involved in that has that takes into consideration a larger planning horizon that's coming, that should be back to us, I believe, by December. I'm wondering if it makes sense at some point for the commission to start thinking about a really thoughtful group of citizens that we can put together to help work through and think through this 2035 question, because it will take more than, I think, just this commission to sort of reckon with what is a much larger transportation concern. And it really is about, as someone said earlier, moving people and not just cars. We can't, everyone knows, I think, that we can't build our way out of traffic. You know, we build more roads, we get more traffic. We build more roads, we get more traffic. And so our alternatives will have to be beyond just the traffic solution. And then last, Commissioner Mushin made this point about the spending ratio at the University of Florida. The funny thing about the University of Florida's funding scenario is that structurally is no different than what FSU and FAMU currently use. The state legislature authorized them the opportunity to charge students a transportation fee, which entitles them to free bus, based on our negotiations, but free bus service. But they also are able to use that transportation fee to build parking garages. And Florida State has indicated, when we went through this in approving the university master plan and we saw 6 parking lots there, we said, we acknowledge that you all are landlocked. Why would you use your precious land to build parking garages and lots instead of student housing or research facilities or other campus amenities? But at that time, the university was still prepared to go forward. Commissioner Mushin has met with the president. I know that this has been on the table of discussion, but all 5 of us were present when Dr. John Carnegie gave a pretty vigorous defense of their transportation plan for the university. I indicate again, I think it's insufficient. And so, Mr. Mayor, I don't know where we go from here with regards to discussions with the university, but if there are not policy changes on the university campus and the administration with regards to how they treat student parking and really student transportation, period, everything that we're doing is going to be for naught, because the university will continue to admit students, will continue to have more cars, will continue to, I think, underutilize what could be an effective bus system. University of Florida is so effective because the university said, we're not building parking garages on campus. We're going to build remote sites close to apartment complexes. You can drive your car there, you can leave your car at home, and we're going to supplement the cost of transportation to get students on buses so that they were out of their cars. And I think we're going to need a similar sort of change at this juncture. But Gabe, I went on a tangent and I didn't let you answer the question of whether or not you could bring those alternatives by the next meeting.
By the 28th meeting, absolutely.
Right.
Let me say this. I hear the concern with the universities, and it's a legitimate concern with the universities and their and they're planning for the future. A very, very legitimate statement. Commissioner Muschin was charged with Florida State University, but his status with the commission is kind of
transitory.
I would like for him to continue in the interim, but after he leaves, I'd like to do that, and I will get with Commissioner Muschin and find out what he has done, and if you don't mind, I'd like to do it with President Ammons as well. I think I have a relationship with the president that maybe we can talk about it. So when those opportune times come, I will do that. I will take that into consideration and get them, because I think they do need to be at the table. But I also think, again, I'll reiterate this, I think DOT needs to be at our table. I really think that. So we can plan and plan right. And Commissioner Gillum is correct. And I would like for the staff, if they will, to come back with some sort of, and I'm not sure how to describe this, some sort of comprehensive plan as to how we begin to address what we're hearing today. We may be doing that. And one last word, I want to commend our staff. I really want to commend them, because they try as hard as they can, based on the information that they get, to come up with some of the solutions, some solution to this. So Gabe, you guys doing a tremendous job. Don't get discouraged. Keep going, okay? And keep us informed. You're really doing it. Commissioner Ziffer.
I'm going to ask Commissioner Gillum if, first of all, he would take this on, and then if the rest of the commission could agree. You have had a meeting with the Secretary of Department of Transportation, and so you have obviously one more meeting than the four of us have. Perhaps you could reach out to him and serve, in addition to our staff of the DOT, but serve as the liaison with DOT. Commissioner Muschin, perhaps you could reach out to President Barron, and maybe we could go ahead and set up a meeting now with the Secretary of DOT, with the President of Florida State. We could reach out to President Ammons and just get this conversation going between all the parties, so that we can start to solve some of these problems. There are clearly some immediate issues to deal with, primarily safety. I mean, as we've said, we want to deal with traffic on Tennessee Street, but we still have some capacity there for a few years. But we have people being injured and killed on Tennessee Street now. Let's deal with that now. So perhaps we could go ahead and move forward in that regard. Secondly, Commissioner Gillum, you said something that I think makes a tremendous amount of sense, and that is to have further discussion about some type of citizens group, much the same as Commissioner Muschin and Commissioner Miller were involved, and you'll have to excuse me, it was right, yeah. Where there was a broader discussion among all the interest groups, not only business, but healthcare, our universities, all the different segments of our population, to talk about what our long-term transportation needs are, what some of those costs are going to be, which I think our staff could do, probably work with the county on this. We've got another committee meeting right now that's trying to determine what potentially sales tax extension money is going to be used for. I sure would like to know what those dollars might be and what our community agrees on, so we could put those in front of that committee. We have an opportunity here where, unless we start to align the elements together, they're going to miss. On the other hand, we're sitting at a point where they could all come together, and we could solve an awful lot of problems if we seize the moment now.
Yeah, I certainly accept the challenge of being in communication with DOT. I think the proper protocol is that we get with the district secretary and get the district secretary engaged in this, since they were the ones, frankly, who were a little more hostile to some of the changes we recommended earlier. And move it through that process. But I don't disagree. I mean, I think it might be worthwhile to Gabe, you'll have to tell me whether or not they would even have the appetite for this, but to invite them to our next meeting, public meeting on the 24th, and let the district secretary say for himself what they believe the state right now has an appetite for, because we need some reliability here. Staff has gone down this road several times before and spent significant time doing it, and at the end of the whole have been told no, and I don't think we can afford to do that, continue to do that. Commissioner Mush, you have to speak to the university piece, but.
No, I obviously agree with that, getting the DOT at the table. So let's do that. That probably should have been done a long time ago.
Well, well, let's not mistake. They have been at the table. Everything we've done up to this point has been at the request of the department. We decided to go the extra mile with regard to public input, but everything we've done with regard to surveying, they're the ones who told us we had to do the pilot. They're the ones who told us the length of the. I mean, they have guided this process, and staff has followed that up to this point. So I don't think any of us should make the mistake that they've not been at the table. They have been at the table. They've been directing and orchestrating up until this point.
Okay.
Well, and I'm happy to talk to the president and make some entrees there. The one thing, though, that I would caution us about is that there is no magic solution to this that makes everybody happy and impacts nobody.
Right.
Just by show of hands, how many of you came to this meeting today in other than a single occupancy motor vehicle? Raise your hand.
One.
One guy.
Three.
Two guys. Three guys. So, I mean, you know, everybody can say, well, that's the future. We'll figure that out later. Well, you know.
Later's now.
Yeah, later's kind of now. So we're, you know, I mean, I think part of the issue is, well, we're going to do everything and nobody's impacted. Well, we're probably not. So there's going to have to be some changes.
Yep.
Mayor.
Commissioner Miller.
Well, I just wanted to iterate that we have a state university and a state highway, and yet we're the ones that are out front on this entire issue. Basically, our staff, our city residents are paying for all the investigation, all the meetings and everything. Our residents are coming out to the meetings and for the discussions. DOT and FSU are integral part of this discussion, and yet we have not, other than the students, we really have not had them at any of our meetings, or other than the times that our staff is going to DOT to work with them. So they have been invisible, but behind the scenes have been very definitely directing the course of the discussion. So until we get to the point where they are actively involved in the decisions that are made here, I am hesitant to commit a lot more time and energy, especially and money, toward trying to solve problems that when at the end of 4 years, they're just batted down. So I wish both of you luck in your endeavors to try to get them involved. I don't know where we go from here, but frankly, it's pretty obvious that we're not going to do this pilot. At least that's what I see. I'm not sure about that. The point is that, as far as I'm concerned, I just get our staff and everyone headed in a different direction sooner rather than later, and I don't see anything to be gained by waiting 2 weeks. So I just throw that out for discussion.
Commissioner Gillum.
With regard to your first statement about, I agree with everybody about the state and their role here, but as I think about the 2035 plan on Tennessee Street, I think the truth is we also have the option of asking the state for that roadway. Or a segment of it if we wanted to. And again, I'm not suggesting that for now, quite frankly, because we need their money to repave it. It's a several $1 million plus project in 2014. But as you know, this is our community. This is our city, and I think we get to decide what the future of that looks like. We and our citizens get to decide what that looks like. And so the process of getting broader engagement around the 2035 planning process, I think we want to move in that direction. And if I wouldn't take from the table the option of us taking a portion of the roadway that is most germane and affects our citizens the most, and allowing us complete authority over what we do on it.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Anybody? I normally don't do this.
March 28th.
Yes. She wants to know the date of the next public hearing, March 28th.
What are we going to accomplish at that? I mean, it's not that I don't want to hear from the public, but the fact is that they're just going to have to come back and say the same things over again. And I don't really see expect to gain out of that. And I'd really like to start to get somewhere with this. I agree with the striking while the iron is hot. I think that now that the Secretary of DOT has said that we have a lot of other options on the table that we had been told in the past that we did not, it's a time to start putting together a different approach and going forward with that starting today, as far as I'm concerned.
Commissioners, let me suggest something. You have a meeting this evening, a regular City Commission meeting, and it sounds like your direction to us is going to be a little bit different than the previous direction. So would you like for us to put some abbreviated discussion on the agenda today? We basically had the 2 public hearings planned. If your feeling is that we've gotten public input, you are ready to make a decision, we could put something on the agenda today that allows you to discuss this evening moving in a different direction and not doing that additional public hearing.
What's the will of the, the only concern I have about, there may have been some people who didn't come to this hearing that were planning to come to the hearing on the 28th. That would be my only concern about not doing that hearing. Other than that, your comments are right on point.
If the idea is to have this discussion tonight, and the 5 of us are here now with all these residents and citizens and business owners, why wouldn't we try to finish it now, whether we're going to move forward or not move forward?
I mean, my only way in is similar to the mayor. We did tell the public, and the reason why we did the morning is because we knew a lot of businesses open at 11 on Tennessee Street. We wanted to make sure that constituency was present, but there's also other constituencies I think that we have a responsibility to, and I think the 24th may provide an option, an evening option.
28th.
For people who, I'm sorry, the 28th may provide an evening option for other people who work and get off and may be able to come down and at least let their voices be heard. I think everyone has given a pretty loud enough indication of their kind of where they are. I think people get a sense of where, but I think we should finish the process, which is, we said the public can speak again. And
that's agreed.
Okay, so not on the agenda tonight. We'll just have our meeting on the 12th.
Okay.
Let's finish the process. It's been announced, and people may want to come on the 28th.
So we could just replay this meeting on the monitors on the 28th. And
we don't really have to come.
You guys don't have to come back.
All right. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Thank you very much. We're adjourned.
That's on City Talk on WCOT, Channel 13.
The 8th Annual Southwood Stock Music and Arts Festival will be